Welcome to the Maritime Story, and today's Maritime Story discussion is on the Red Sea threat. To discuss that, we have got a person who doesn't need any introduction, but still I'll introduce to our viewers, Captain Sarabjeet S. Parmar, who was commissioned into the Indian Navy on 1st July 1987 and retired on 30th June 2023. He has commanded 2 ships and a frontline anti-submarine warfare and anti-shipping helicopter squadron. Apart from that, he was the executive director and senior fellow at the National Maritime Foundation, and presently he is a distinguished fellow at the Center of Military History and Conflict Studies at the United Service Institute of India. Sir, बहुत shukriya and Jai Hind aapko. And thank you so much for serving the nation. Next, our guest is Captain Gajanan Karanjikar. So my question to Captain Sarabjeet is, sir, as we know about the Red Sea crisis, and I would like to read out 2 lines from a report before putting my question, that Red Sea crisis, it is a part of the violent regional spillover of Israel's war with Hamas in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza, which we generally know. And I would like you to highlight, of course, the threat is known by everyone. What are the solutions to those threats, which is, causing a great damage to the maritime industry? Sir, your words on this, please.
First of all, thank you, Gaurav, and it's a pleasure to be with you here. And thank you for your kind words. I'd just like to add, apart from the USI, I'm also a distinguished fellow of the Council for Strategic and Defence Research. It's a recent joining of mine. Getting back to what you have asked. So you see, instability creates or opens doors for a lot of things to happen. And what we are seeing today in the Red Sea is an offshoot of instability in a region which is not adjacent to the Red Sea, but right next to it. And that's a spillover. Now, generally instability, it opens doors for maritime crime like piracy. One, what we witnessed earlier, the instability in Somalia. But this instability in Yemen has generally been kept inland, one. And if you remember in 2015, when we had sent our ships to Yemen to get our people out and we did a non-combatant evacuation operation, I don't think that time we would have realized that the spillover would extend to the maritime domain. So if there's instability on land, it is a well-known aspect that it will spill over to the maritime domain at some point in time. I think the trigger for this to happen was the Gaza situation right now. All right. Now, interestingly, there is an interwoven web of international relations, right? And we see nations who are allies, right? Let's take a look at NATO allies is one, and the response to answering or combating or addressing the firing of munitions by the Houthis at merchant ships. So if you look at Operation Prosperity Garden, you had a couple of NATO allies who are not taking part in this one. So this is the interweaving of international relations that has a repercussion on this. And I don't think it's going to go away for a long time. Piracy can be addressed, but this problem emanating from Houthi-occupied Yemen is something that is, well, I have no solution in mind.
Very rightly said. There is a newspaper report of 1st May 2024. I would like to read it, and I will start with Captain Gajanan Karanjikar this time. There are few sentences I am reading. In view of the existing and emerging challenges in the maritime domain, Navy will remain operationally ready at all times to deter adversaries, said the Honorable Admiral. Sir, I would like to ask you that Navy or the Indian Coast Guard, these are the only organization to deal with these kind of situation, or else bucket we can make out of certain international collaborating agencies bringing together into the domain? I'll start with Captain Gajanan Karanjikar, please.
Red Sea has become a point of contention now, and with Commander Saab being here, there's no more authoritative person to speak about the conflicts, threats, and solutions on Red Sea. He's been there, done that, kind of a personality. See, as you in initial questions, you rightly mentioned, this is a spillover situation in the Red Sea of your, Israel and Palestinian war in Gaza situation. In this particular instance, I definitely feel that, the geopolitical situation in the world today is so volatile. And I'm much disturbed, perturbed that the situation like this develops, in an innocent water, when you have UN as a very strong agency which has given that right to the world shipping. Shipping consists of 90% of its, product transport, or a sea transport. Now, this has got some of the conditions have got power to, stand still the operations and affect those who are not at all drawn into conflict. Now, this is where I come to, as I also earlier said, that, Indian Navy is fine. I mean, we are there to take charge and we will take charge. But how long? You know, is there not a world order which need to be set? Because, we need to have a coalition which will work on this, and these kind of situations should be avoided. There are many more powerful navies in the world which need to be also be there. There are many diplomatic channels which need to be spoken to the Iran, or you name a country which is Yemen. I mean, all those 5 countries which are involved directly into Houthi attacks.
I'd like to bring in Captain Sarabjeet. Sir, same question to you. What is your say on that, please?
So, Gaurav, the solution is cooperation. We realized with piracy that if we did not cooperate, then we couldn't address it. And just to give you an example, there was a Major General Buster House, who was the Op Atlanta commander way back in 2010, 2011. And after that, in a deposition before the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Lords, when he was asked about how to sharpen response or something like that, it's available online. He had said that given his area of responsibility, to look at a 30-minute response time from a ship sending out an SOS, a 30-minute response time, he requires 83 frigate-sized ships, each with an armed helicopter. There is no navy in the world who has that number freely available to deploy. One. So the solution was cooperation. It took us a long time to get over differences in national laws, rules of engagement, work together, various mechanisms that came up, including the working groups and all. But that was for a common maritime crime, something that was impacting the maritime trade of all nations. Right? And it was a non-state actor with unproven contacts to state actors. It's never proven. Here we have a non-state actor with proven ties to a state actor. And as I said, international relations comes into play. So you find NATO allies like there were 3 nations, I think it was Italy, Germany, and France, who said that we will operate independently. India, by the way, is also now a full member of the Combined Maritime Forces, one. But we'd like to operate independently because it gives us the freedom to act the way we want. Problem with this typical Red Sea, as I said, is the interweaving of international relations. So there are nations who have relations with Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Israel. They have to tread a very cautious path. Cooperation is the key, but as I said, there are limitations. And the limitation will be the way nations will respond. We've seen the stances of various nations on various issues. How many have voted for, abstained against various resolutions in the UN is one. And since Captain Gajanan mentioned the UN, we already have, these cooperative mechanisms in place.
Sir, my next question to you, as you talked about the cooperative mechanism, and there was a recent news I was reading. Spain rejects India and Israel ship with arms. So the cooperation is lagging. Why so? As India is seen as a brother to the globe. So how do you see this, please?
So when I read this report, I was trying to put the global navigation map in my mind. Then I realized perhaps the ship did not go through the Red Sea. Otherwise, Haifa would have been the first port of call. Whereas Spain is down there, so it must have gone round the Cape, entered through, and obviously it is, whatever cargo has to get off. So that is a decision made by the Spanish government that we will not support anything that sort of supports Israel in a way. So you see the number of cases piling up against Israel, whether it be the ICJ, or the resolutions that are being discussed and the manner in which, well, if you'd like to call it a sort of isolation of Israel in one way, but then it has the support of the US. So these issues will continue. I think if the ship had taken the Red Sea and chanced going through not being fired upon, then perhaps the cargo would have reached Haifa before it entered the port of Spain.
Thank you so much. I'd like to bring in Captain Gajanan Karanjikar. Sir, what would you like to say on this?
See, I mean, today the situation in the world is to toe the line. Half the country is a tow line of US because of the, the sanctions in place somehow are made by the US and UN. US dollar currency still rules the world today. So you have a situation where the countries are again with their sovereign right as to what to allow, what not to allow. But again, collaboration and cooperation is the name of the game. We don't see many countries coming forward to this kind of causes. Even the attack which was done by Iran to Israel was so predicted and was so kind of a मैं माने ऐसा करता हूँ तुमने ऐसा करना, that kind of stuff. So we know how things are panning out. Anyway, I am very happy at this point in time that our importance in the world politics has increased. We have a strong leadership at center. We have a strong foreign Minister of External Affairs department, which is dealing with this kind of nonsense which is happening or which has been planned out. Thank you.
Very rightly said. I'd like to bring in Captain Sarabjeet Singh. Sir, my question to you, it is talked about India that it wants to enter as a permanent member in the United Nations Security Council. And, down the years and with the report analysis, the presence of UNSC is fading nowadays. Maybe the world order needs to be changed now. And with this crisis, Red Sea crisis, UNSC is somewhere, failed to, situation balance in those areas. So how do you see that, please?
So when you talk about the UN and the UNSC, we've got to go back to the genesis. The security environment that existed at that point in time is number one. And then, of course, who would be the permanent member of the United Security Council? And if you look at 1945, you must remember that nations were still colonized. They were becoming independent. They were economically and militarily weak. They were trying to find their feet. Today, we have the same nations who are stronger economically, who are stronger militarily, who are more responsive, and therefore they are seeking a place for their voice to be heard on the global stage. Change is always something that the present establishments would not like to happen, whether it's evolutionary or revolutionary. If you ask me if the UN is redundant, I would partially agree, but there is scope for improvement. But there has to be a collective reform change that comes about. Similarly, for the UNSC, and I would say, if I'm saying that if it's not only India, and there is a rightful voice that says, why isn't Africa represented? Why isn't South America represented? And I do remember many years ago, and I've read articles saying that the sort of doubt that people or the nations have or the globe has in including Germany and Japan, given the histories of the past two world wars, of adding them. But the world today is different. So if everybody is saying that, yes, we agree with India coming on board the United Nations Security Council, then why hasn't it happened? So there is lip service and there is affirmative action.
I'd like to bring in Captain Gajanan Karanjikar. Sir, what is your say on this, please?
Absolutely. What Commander Saab said is the right thing. The formation of UNSC under the circumstances where the world order was different. And now we are looking at the world order and the young countries which are coming up, the way they have the power to dictate, or to cause conflicts in the world is huge. UN has to be, reformed in its best situation. Change is the only constant. UNSC being part of UNSC or not is really, is a matter of no choice to us. Similarly, it is not a matter of choice to the world as well. World is consulting us, world is taking us into the view of the geopolitical order, and that is what matters to India.
I would like to bring in Captain Sarabjeet. Sir, recently, Duqm port, as we were talking about previously, in Oman, I'm talking, which has been taken by India on lease to it. And it has been said that it will help in dealing the situation of the Red Sea. So how do you see that?
See, the ability to keep ships at sea for a number of days is a major factor when you want to have a blanket of maritime security. So if every time, let's say, a ship has to come back to India and go back, then the time of travel increases, all that adds to it. So if you have these ports, like you did mention Duqm, yes. And well, let me just inform you also that when we were combating piracy, earlier if a ship had to enter, then you had a government to government, request and then approval. But there were agreements signed with many ports at that point in time, saying that we'd like our ships to enter, take on fuel, take on food, and so they would be back in their patrol positions within, say, 48 hours, which is a very good timing to be done. So the more similar ports of control you have, or even if you don't have, you did mention lease in one way, even if you don't have, but you have an understanding, that our ships will enter, they will take on food, water, and fuel and get back into their positions. That is a norm which is happening. So if you look at all the logistics agreements that we have signed with various nations across the Indo-Pacific, this adds to maritime cooperation to a greater extent. And I would say it is also now being extended to aircraft. You have presence, and presence is omnipotent as far as maritime security is concerned.
Rightly said, and the presence word you talked about is applicable in every sphere as well. India has got a global presence now. And adding on these words, I'll bring in Captain Gajanan Karanjikar. Sir, what is your say on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Indian Navy's role as a security net provider in the Red Sea crisis has been really, appreciated by the world. And with virtue of our position, we could do it with the ease. Had we taken sides from beginning, or had we been compelled to take sides in the beginning in geopolitical situation, then probably it would have been difficult for our leadership to take a particular side. Having a special zone in Oman or Dukum, it's a very welcome move. As you said, as Commander Sir very rightly said, the endurance at sea makes a lot of difference.
Starting with Captain Sarabjeet. Sir, I was going through some of the reports, and it talked about the impacts on exports and, of course, the imports also, because it's both ways. And shipping, the cargo coming through shipping routes is much cheaper. So, in this kind of situation, how to deal with the things from your perspective, please?
So before that, I'd like to disagree with Captain Karanjikar with all due respect. He used the term net security provider. I'm very uncomfortable with that term. It's difficult to, define. I would rather push for the terms we are now using as preferred security partner and first responder. To my mind, they are more benign. And of course, there's something that is doable, which we are doing with our presence, in the region. Now, insofar as cost of cargo goes, there is a report I read that since November 19th, when the first attack on Galaxy Leader took place, till the end of the financial year, which is 31st March, the impact on the Indian economy due to rerouting would be around 30 billion US dollars. We're looking at around 4.5 months only. If this continues, the cost will go up. And to give you an example, Captain Karanjikar is being the marina he is, can correct me on time, but from Kandla to the port of Newark, if a ship goes to the Red Sea, it takes around 19 days. Via the Cape, it takes 36 days, almost double. So you can imagine the cost, rerouting, insurance, transportation costs, everything is going to hit the normal person on the road. And to give you another example is oil or fuel. We import a lot of oil, and if all the tankers are going to come via the Cape, then our receipt of that oil is going to get delayed. Right? Converting it into petroleum products is going to get further delayed, and the export. So the cycle gets delayed, and export of petroleum products, as per the last figure I read, constitutes 17% of India's GDP. I think we need to have a look at it. There's another impact that's happening, which we have not realized. We have a great shipbreaking industry in India. Bangladesh has one. Most of these ships come through the Red Sea. The ships who are rerouting south of Cape are now calling on ports in Sri Lanka and southern India. These ports are actually finding it difficult to provide fuel for these ships. Again, how soon will the Red Sea be safe? As I said in the beginning, I have no idea.
Sir, I'd like to bring in Captain Gajanan Karanjikar. Sir, your thought process, please.
No, very true. It has significantly not only increased the freights of cargo and other services, but recently there was a report from Indian Global Trade Research Initiative, GDRI, which said that the small exports from India, small in sense significant for the world, smaller for India, because we only export a percentage of what we have the consumptions of, like rice for that matter. 233% increase in freight rate. The grapes which go from Nasik. I met many, last 2-3 months back, when I met many grape owners and grape farmers in Nasik where I live, people have been complaining about, sir, that freight, those rates will come back when? So it is something like that happening to the world shipping. which is supposed to be a huge movement.
I would like to bring in Captain Sarabjeet. Sir, as nowadays a new word has been given to India as a Vishwa Bandhu. In this scenario, also India has maintained a good relationship so that the import of oils on cheaper rates, which India has managed to. So, do you think that this is a right name to give? And what is your take on this, please?
Personally, I'd like to stick to a preferred security partner and first responder because it's a proven tag and it's something that we have been doing and is acceptable. Then, rather than accept a new term and then try to explain to the world what we mean by it. And I think the term Vishwa Bandhu automatically gets covered under preferred security partner and first responder. So, best to stick to something that the world is already used to.
Thank you. And I'd like to bring in Captain Gajanan Karanjikar.
Absolutely, absolutely. India has commanded a title, not demanded to the world. Instead of being dictated by the world as to what to do, India is in a position today where the India is being consulted. That is more important. And in my opinion, Vishwandhu or Vishwaguru, where we are leading the entire world to a betterment, we are certainly seen as a major ally for most of the countries in the world today, and countries are regarding us as one of theirs.
Thank you so much, both of you. This was Captain Sarabjeet Singh and Captain Gajanan Karanjikar. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Navik. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Hind.